The Kunio Kun series is one that spans many consoles and decades at this point. It's one that I'm sure many gamers are at least familiar with to some degree, with entries like River City Ransom on the NES and the recently released River City Girls. With a rich history of games to its name, most of which never left Japan, what better opportunity than now to look at one of the sequels to River City Ransom, Downtown Special Kunio Kun's historical period drama. Since I've only recently been truly introduced to the games, as in actually playing them, I feel I'm no expert on the matter, which is why I've enlisted a specialist and friend of the channel, Spammer D of Infinite Combo Reviews, to help out.
Well, you've come to the right place, my friend. As a master of all games, ever, of course I can help you out. And lucky for you, beat-em-ups are my specialty, and I've covered plenty of them. And if you like this video, why not venture down the rabbit hole with me and Retro Drew over on my channel as we lay the smackdown on some street punks in the classic River City Ransom. But for now, let's focus on what's going on here. At first glance, I bet you're thinking that this game is just a River City reskin, right? Well, it sort of is. It's actually the characters of that series putting on a historical play of feudal Japan, where they're in search of medicine for the sick head of oh wow, I'm gonna butcher this. The Bunzo family? Which is neat, though it doesn't really change all that much gameplay-wise.
As you can imagine, much like in River City Ransom, the idea of this game is to beat your way through tons of ruffians to teach them a lesson that they'll soon probably forget, cause how the hell else do you end up with like 50 plus games in your series? But this time around, some things have changed. Downtown Special has a leg up or two over its predecessor with the likes of a map so that you're less likely to be lost. It also serves another purpose, but more on that later. You now also have a skill tree where you can add or subtract from your current skill pool in order to improve another.
And this is a handy feature too. Perfect for strategically countering a boss or rival gang that has you outclassed, so long as you don't mind sacrificing some stats to turn the tides. And speaking of stats, the trademark RPG elements of the series are still intact, like shopping for tasty treats to increase skills, clothing for buffs, and ancient deadly techniques to unleash on unsuspecting baddies. Hey Drew, do you know where we could buy those IRL? Asking for a friend.
The game also features a couple of other quirks, including always having a buddy tag along, even in single player, which helps level the playing field, and the ability to unlock new characters whom you can switch to throughout the game, which is done by beating gang leaders who then switch sides and can be called upon for battle. And my god, it has the ever-coveted save feature absent from far too many NES games. Metroid. Thankfully, what hasn't changed are the core mechanics. Combat is just as smooth and even more satisfying than River City Ransom, as dishing out punches and kicks yields the always energetic thuds and whooshes expected of the game. I can't tell you how gratifying it was to land certain moves like uppercuts and new techniques that send the enemies spiraling back in shame, or nailing them with a certain weapon that lays them out flat.
And while I will admit that the weapon variety isn't quite as strong as in previous titles, you do at least get to run people over with a rickshaw, which is never not funny.
The best part is that we never have to worry about ending up on the bad side of town, because we are the bad side of town. Okay, where the hell is everybody? So unlike its predecessor, Downtown Special ditches the steady flow of street thugs on every corner. Instead, you're tasked with hunting down your foes this time around, which, if you ask me, is far less interesting as you no longer have that badass feeling of constantly encroaching upon rival gang territory. But of course, that's just my opinion, and I'm just some dumb nerd on the internet. Thankfully, I have someone else who seems a little more qualified, aka another dumb nerd on the internet. Spammer D, what's your take on this?
Being a nerd on the interwebs, real-life street brawls taking place outside the confinements of my small room are clearly the norm for me, so the idea of hunting down different feudal factions across the map does sound like a pretty cool idea. Pity they completely botched it up though, with one of the dumbest map screens and stage layouts that I have ever seen. Though we'll get more into that in a moment, because first, I need to compliment the actual locations on said stupid map. Obviously, play or not, feudal Japan is quite different from a modern-day town, so it should come as no surprise that a change of scenery has taken place. Instead of handing out beatdowns on the streets or in school halls, this time around you'll find yourself tossing foes down bottomless pits, laying the smackdown on scenic mountain paths, or just roasting them alive in valleys of fire. Just to name a few. Historical accuracy.
You do duke it out in towns from time to time as well. And while they may be a bit mute on colors, everywhere else does an amazing job of making up for that with dazzling decor and ravishing palette-cleansing colors. So while hunting down your next foe, you'll be sure to have an eyeful. Unfortunately, past the dazzling coat of paint that these locales have, they aren't nearly as well antiquated as previous titles. In River City Ransom, most fights took place in simply laid out areas like streets and parks, with the occasional more advanced playfield like warehouses and construction sites. But the overall layout consisted of a lot of flat surfaces geared towards the game's squabbles.
Yeah, or to put it bluntly, it follows the same kind of 2D movement on a 3D-ish plane you'd come to expect from the genre. Think Double Dragon or Scott Pilgrim. But Downtown Special tries to mix things up a bit. Mud that slows you to a crawl, unrelenting river currents, which ironically can be turned off in the settings, and very awkward ascending and descending hills with cliffs tend to impede your progress quite a bit. Though personally, I actually kind of like the idea of these additions to the game. I just don't think they were implemented all too well, as we often found ourselves trying to avoid them whenever possible.
Pro tip, if you can avoid fighting a boss up on a mountain, I'd do so, as it was quite the swift kick in the little Kunio Kuns to be booted from the mountain by the final boss, only to find out that he had moved locations when we went back for our rematch.
No! Oh! Damn it!
Focusing back in on poor stage design, this cave section is a perfect example. The layout just does not lend itself to a fun, all-out brawl. The slopes mess with the hit detection, and the high likelihood of knocking the opponent off screen, then waiting for them to come back, only to get hit with a cheap shot, was not very cash money of the game. But the problems don't stop there. If there was one thing in this game that annoyed us to no end, it would be the screen transitions. I feel like it's game design 101 that when a character exits screen right, they should appear screen left after the transition. But by some weird game design flaw, that is not the case in Downtown Special.
Yeah, more often than not, we'd find ourselves completely turned around when the screen transition would just spin us back on the same side of the screen we had left on. Because you can end up accidentally going to the same screen you just came from. And my sense of direction is already absolute garbage, without them screwing up east and west. Just lead the way, Drew.
I have no idea what ancient Japanese demon possessed them to do this. Probably sake. But boy is it annoying. Thankfully, not all hope is lost, as the music is quite good. As you might suspect, it definitely goes for that traditional Japanese sound, but it retains that faithful techno's flavor, with lots of well-paced swing drum beats to keep battles moving, and action-packed rock-based compositions best made to throw down to. Flaws and all, I don't want to downplay Downtown Special, as it is a fun and welcome addition to the never-ending Kunio Kun series, but its cons do tend to outweigh its pros. That being said, I think going into a game like this knowing these flaws may help you enjoy it more as your expectations have been set. And it is worth mentioning that there's a Game Boy port of this game which I haven't played, so who knows, maybe it fixes some of the problems.
And don't get us wrong, if you're a Kunio Kun or River City fan, this game delivers on pretty much everything you'd expect it to. It's just that a lot of its new features don't exactly stick the landing. Expect a bumpy journey.
So if you're in need of a decent follow-up to River City Ransom, especially on a game night with friends, don't pass up the opportunity to go tooth and nail with Downtown Special.